watching chapter 3 of Skin Game. If you haven't seen the other videos, this is now actually the third video, pleasingly. And we'll see how many chapters I managed to read in this segment. Great word, segment. And this chapter is called Begging Letters. I'm Alex Spear. I write cozy LGBT mysteries. Sometimes it's a murder mystery, a bit like Agatha Christie, but you'll always get LGBT main characters and narratives and our stories as well. See if you can spot who is the LGBT protagonist in this one, actually. Keep your eyes peeled. So this is taking place in September 2024. And this is still Ophelia as the narrator, but we have the omniscient point of view. A murder is such an unpleasant thing for a city to have to come to terms with. While we had not known the guy, he had seemed pleasant enough. Why would anyone have hated him enough to kill him? The stench of death and the knowledge that one of us was a cold-blooded poisoner seemed to haunt our little group of neighbours. Our games of pity-pat had gotten quieter, slower. Julie had been writing her brother as her only living relative, pleading with him to share some of his good fortune with her. She is an old lady now, and life is hard. She needs help around the house, and preferably to move to a better apartment within New Orleans. The cheap rent she pays means that her landlord never wants to fix anything that breaks. Her window shutters are hanging off the hinges, leaving her vulnerable. She fears that there will be a robbery, or that a particularly fierce storm will shatter the glass without the protection of proper shutter panels. The thought keeps her awake at night, all through hurricane season, which these days seems to be 6 months out of the year. Her landlord has a particularly unpleasant way of furnishing his rental properties with appliances that are very old and on their last legs. He hopes that they will eventually stop working while in the care of his tenants, so that he can then bill them for the cost of a brand new one, which he will switch around and put in his own house. He knew his tenants were trapped. They would not find such cheap rent anywhere, and yet they were all in debt to him for falsified costs and repairs. Getting somewhere better to live would lift Julie's spirits in a way that few could understand. Even $1,000 would change her life. Her brother had written back just once. He relented in his old age. Perhaps at my time of life it is best to get good with God, his letter had read. So when the nice old man had appeared at the party, Julie had assumed, along with everyone else, that it was her brother. She had not seen him since they were both children. Charles is trying to maintain a private and professional murder investigation, but the gossipy group of neighbours involved in this scandal are incorrigible. They were there when it happened, after all, and they are all suspects. They feel the only way to get through it is to discuss it with everyone, and didn't they have a right to? Charles threatens them with obstruction of justice. I will lock you all up for impeding my investigation, he roars at the various witnesses and hangers-on who insist on bringing him their wild theories. He does not know who leaked the impossible findings of the DNA test. Whoever this murder victim is, calling himself Roosevelt Hervé, who had flown to New Orleans and met up with Miss Julie, one thing is for sure, it is not her brother at all. The deceased, discovered in the hotel's presidential suite, was not related to Miss Julie and was therefore a John Doe. No matter how Charles appeals for discretion, rumours around the city persist. The way people are recklessly speculating, they are asserting that the corpse was not that of a man. It is a magical creature that assumed the look of a human, a doppelganger that shapeshifts and fools everyone that it is Julie's long-lost kin. Charles explodes. There is no such thing as a skinwalker. This is a simple case of homicide. I will get to the bottom of this mix-up. Charles had become the local cop very young and had now progressed upwards through the ranks, recently becoming a detective. Murders came to his desk for resolution. Charles is looking back through the witness statements. Everyone remembered the event a little differently. Personally, I thought the guy that showed up looked maybe younger than the 96-year-old brother we had all been expecting to meet. We had been having so much fun before the tragedy. Julie had uncorked the champagne with a pop and had poured out a small glass for everyone. There were 13 of us around that table, so the bottle didn't go far. Everyone had a half glass, just enough to drink a toast to her new wealth. Julie had been calling out for a second bottle. Steve, as a guest, could not help but compare this fancy place with his own bar. He had been grousing about the duty on imported booze. None of you bumpkins has ever visited France where they make this stuff. I sat and drank vintage Taittinger there for $30 a bottle. This we're drinking right here is 3 times more expensive than it needs to be. You pay for the taxes, not the product. Charles has a few efficient administrators who have organized and transcribed his handwritten notes for him. He is reading back through the typed accounts of that party where the stranger had been killed. When Charles breaks the news to Julie that this man is not her brother, he watches her carefully for any tell, anything in her reaction that suggests she already knew. It was not Roosevelt who flew in from California for your party, Miss Julie. What do you think about that? I just don't know what to think. You're telling me he lied? The DNA shows he was not related to you at all. Charles reads the notes of what Julie said in response to his questions. As I saw this man, who I believed to be my brother, I was staring at him and thinking, so this is what he looks like now. It did not occur to me to wonder whether it was somebody else. He had a similar face to when we were kids, old and wrinkled now, just like me, wrinkled like an old tomato. But he walked differently than I remembered, with quite a limp. Folks say I'm psychic. Well, I guess I can't be then, huh? I could have sworn I felt my brother's love coming from this stranger. Charles puts his notes aside for a moment so he can think. Could Julie have been the one who murdered this guy? Was she more likely to do away with a real brother who held the key to inheriting a fortune? Or was she more likely to find the courage to kill a man who was not related to her, a total stranger? And why was this dude posing as Julie's brother? Could they have been in on it together? Was Julie a crazy lady who did witchcraft like folks said? Or was she a shrewd old bird who gave in to the temptation of getting a bunch of money? Back in the day, it would have been possible for a victim to be misidentified. This interloper who was posing as Julie's brother might have gotten away with his deception and been buried with everyone believing that he was Roosevelt Urbay as he claimed. These days, Charles thinks, we have the science to determine who a person is. That man was not related to Julie. He could not have been her brother. Even if Julie's late mother had fooled around and gotten pregnant with some other baby daddy. This man who had arrived in New Orleans and died was not even Julie's half-brother. The DNA lab did what they do, and they were very clear. They can use dental records as well, but gathering these will take time. The fingerprints of this John Doe do not show up on any police database, but then neither do the fingerprints of the real Roosevelt Urbay, who is still missing. Neither man has been in trouble with the law, it seems. They also find that this unidentified body is wearing a gold necklace with an initial E looped several times around one ankle, hidden underneath his sock. It seems a bizarre place to wear a necklace. He did not want it to be seen, perhaps. So Charles is working on the additional theories that either this John Doe's actual first name began with an E, or else in life he was having a secret relationship with somebody whose first initial was E. Charles asks Julie whether she could still identify the cadaver for him, even though it was not her brother after all. Would she be able to confirm that it was the same stranger who attended a party at her behest? Julie shivers, but she is not too squeamish to oblige. She has dealt with many births and deaths in her time. She looks at the body in the police morgue and confirms, yes, that looks like the guy who came to her party. Now that she knows it is definitely not her beloved brother Roosevelt, she can see that this is a slightly younger man, younger than her, she would guess, 75 perhaps. Julie gets the distinct impression that Charles resents that the police in California are involved. He seems to feel he does not need the help of anyone. Julie is worried that Charles will miss out on vital clues because of his own ego getting in the way. She harangues him until he agrees to a system of information sharing where he is as cooperative as possible with his peers in the state where Julie's brother had been living. Julie insists that he keep her up to date on each development as it happens. He grudgingly accepts, provided it is recognized that he is in charge. Come on, detective. Think what an emotional roller coaster I have been on in the past few days, Julie tells Charles. It turns out that my long-lost brother was not murdered at my party after all, so where is he? Is he safe? I need answers. Maybe this imposter has already killed Roosevelt and taken his place. Well then, if that were true, who killed the imposter and why? Charles asks her. Revenge by someone who knew what he had done, Julie guesses. Karma is a bitch. So once again, you would be the main suspect, Miss Julie. He is joking with her a little, with his hard-boiled dark humour. She makes a noise of horror. Charles is not too old for her to tan his backside. And so the recent charts from Julie's brother's dentist are obtained. The ante-mortem records match with the teeth, dental work, bloods, and DNA of the man who has been murdered at her party. Charles is perplexed. I don't understand. Yes, you do, detective, Julie chides him. I can understand it, and I am old as dirt. I know that you can understand this. So, Charles is running his hand through his hair, making it stand up on end. The guy who came here, who was murdered at your party, he was the same guy who's been going to the dentist in California, calling himself Roosevelt Obey. Exactly. Whoever he was, he's been posing as my brother for some time. Just how long has this been going on? Julie splutters with rage. A man in California has been impersonating my big brother Roosevelt for years, and no one knows who he was or why he would do that. I wonder at what point he made the switch. Trying to tie up loose ends, Charles soon establishes that this DB does not correspond with the medical information held in New Orleans from decades gone by when Roosevelt, Julie, and their siblings had all been young children. We need to talk to the wife, Charles concludes. I need to know whether she had any idea her husband had been replaced by an imposter who was going to his dental appointments of all things. Charles's assistant, Blanche, says what they are all thinking. The old folks would say that this is proof that the dead guy is a skinwalker. He looked like Roosevelt, but he had been replaced by a monster, a supernatural being. And that is the one thing we know for sure did not happen, Charles spits. That's just a ridiculous legend. I have no patience for it when we are carrying out serious police work. The gossip around New Orleans reaches fever pitch. The restaurant management wants to be able to reassure their patrons. The owner phones Charles every day demanding a press release. Just say it was a family dispute about an inheritance, man. The hotel owner urges Charles. I've got regular customers refusing to come back. News of a poisoned glass of champagne travels fast. Tell everyone the truth. It was a brother and sister fighting about money. Then they'll know it won't happen to anyone else. I can't say that, Charles repeats himself tersely. You know we haven't established who the victim was, or who killed him, or the motive. Just about all we have managed to deduce so far is that he was not the brother. The dead man seems not to be related to anyone in the state, but a national combing of all the records to track down who he was is taking time and resource. Charles is not particularly interested in the scientific aspects of police work. He sees that as rather rarefied, rather snooty, those folks with their fancy pants, degrees, and obnoxious vocabulary designed to humiliate and exclude. Instead, he likes to get out there and ask questions. The folks around a crime always knew everything you needed to find out, he believes. Some of them would know who the killer was and would be protecting them until Charles applied just the right kind of pressure. Then there were others who knew more than they realized they did. You just had to piece it all together. A murder mystery revealed more about the life and relationships of the person who had been killed than it did about the grisly details of death and decay. Charles always likened it to being called in at the end of a man's life, then working backwards. He loved it. He was good at it. Misha gives a short statement. She tells Charles that she hadn't wanted to go to the party at the Pont d'Avignon Hotel, as she never liked Julie much, but she was owed money from a game of pity-pat. Misha says that therefore she wanted to be there if it was true that Julie was now rich. She hadn't liked the brother she was introduced to much either, but it was a shame that he had died. It made her shiver to think they had a murderer in New Orleans. The police needed to catch whoever it was right away. Lopez also says that he hopes the police find the killer before he does. "I'd deal with him," he says when interviewed. He's asked to check his guns in when he comes into the police station to give his statement. "I don't like thinking that there's a killer out there roaming free in New Orleans. A man walking around knowing he has taken a life. Or a woman," Charles muses. "We're working on the theory that the victim was poisoned, and poison tends to be a woman's weapon." The waitress who had brought out the champagne at the party was tearful. "The restaurant wants to fire me for this, but I swear I don't know anything about it." "No one told you to switch the bottles or put anything in the glasses?" Charles is asking her, searching her face for any signs of deception. "Of course not. You think I would do something like that?" He tries to get her to calm down. "You've been working as a waitress for how long?" 3 years, part-time while I go to school." "How easy is it for a customer to slip something in a drink?" "You mean like roofies or something?" she whispers, horrified by the thought. "Sure, something like that. Drinks get spiked. You ever seen it done?" She thinks back. "I had to take a training course about watching out for it. This is a party town and you have to be aware. But this group did everything right. They did not leave their drinks unattended. They opened up the bottle and everyone chugged the champagne right away." "Could the glasses have been dirty?" he asks her. She shakes her head. "Everything goes through the dishwasher and then I tend to bring them straight out. We were so busy that night. There wouldn't have been time for anyone to get hold of a glass and put anything in." "Describe exactly what you did to serve those drinks." "I was back in the kitchen. I stopped the dishwasher in the middle of the drying cycle and pulled out the 13 flutes we would need. I put them on one of our round black rubberized trays to carry them out." She's going through the motions, moving her arms in line with the recalled actions, thinking back. She looks like an actor at a rehearsal. "In my other hand, I had the ice bucket with the champagne, the cork still in. I didn't even remove the foil. I remember the glasses were a little bit too warm to serve the champagne, but we just went ahead. There were barely enough to go around all the tables, so I had to use them." "It was busy that night, you say?" "We were full and we had a line out the door of people waiting to come in. Friday night, and this group decided to have a party. 13 of them with no reservation. I was going to tell them it just wasn't possible, but then Miss Julie gave us the biggest tip I've ever seen, so my manager squeezed them in." "I guess it was noisy, huh? Did you overhear any of the conversation?" "Not much. I was running around, waiting on my other tables. This group kept on telling me that they were rich. They were excited, like they'd won the lottery or something. I was happy for them, I guess." "Must have made you feel a little resentful," he tries. "Here you are working so hard and these folks suddenly have a fortune through sheer dumb luck." "Not really. I actually enjoy being a server. Always have. It's kind of fun." She gives a shiver. "I'd never seen a dead body before. He looked so still." "You saw him?" "The bosses made me go in on my day off to identify him. I mean it. The body. They wanted me to confirm that it was the guy I had waited on the night before. Charles manages to keep his temper hidden. He is apoplectic that the hotel management waited so long before informing the police of the death of a guest. That hotel room should have been sealed off right away, but instead they had allowed all sorts of people to traipse in and out. The evidence could have been contaminated. Was that why the DNA did not match up? He feels he is surrounded by incompetent idiots, and this case is hard enough to crack without these screw-ups. God damn it. Poor Charles. So now we've got on to chapter 4, which is called Rumours, and that's in the same month, September 2024. And we have to have a continuation of the investigation for this murder. I'm just going to end the stream briefly, but I'm going to try and record a bit more tonight if I can. If not, tune in again. It may be tomorrow.